Hi, everyone. Welcome to our next session, a CISO's blueprint, the must haves to build and scale your ASPM strategy. I'm your host, Jamie Shu, Field CTO at SciCode. I'm delighted to introduce you to a very special guest speaker today. VJ, welcome.
Hey, folks, how we doing? It's great to be here.
Thank you, VJ. It's such a privilege. For the audience, VJ is a award-winning CISO, currently at Cisco Meraki. He was actually recently named as a finalist for the prestigious Top Global CISO for 2024 award in Cyber Defense Magazine 12th Annual Awards Program. VJ brings almost 3 decades of experience in IT, and he has played major roles leading InfoSec programs at TikTok and within the federal government. Uh, VJ's track record speaks for himself. Very excited to be here with you, VJ. First of all,
Thank
can
you.
you please introduce yourself to the audience and give them some context of your background?
Yeah. It's crazy. It's hard being 22 years old to, have had this 30 years worth of experience. Uh, I've been doing this for a long time, and cybersecurity it's just so much fun. You get to be involved in so many different things, and you meet so many interesting people, and work on so many different problems. Uh, I started so long ago, way back at Westboro, Massachusetts, and being here now at Cisco Meraki, it's a dream come true. Working with the people that I work with at Cisco, it's really exciting, and we're doing some really fun things here.
Love it. I have a federal background as well in the past, so very excited about this. Obviously, we're talking about ASPM and application security today. So interesting. It's obviously hot topic for the era, I would say. So having served as the CISO of one of the most complex software companies, software first companies, how you've seen the role of AppSec evolve?
Yeah, application security is just so important from a quality standpoint. When you think about the products that we're producing, whether it be the hardware or the software or the elements that are supporting infrastructure running the cloud, uh, that continuous visibility, the centralized controls, the centralized governance, the traceability, it's all just so important. And being able to bring all of that together in one place, and really being able to highlight the code quality efforts and the infrastructure quality efforts in that singular platform, it's really important.
Yeah, so as a fellow practitioner, and I really like the fact that you highlight the quality, as you said quality multiple times in your response. And I find that it's one of the transformations that seeing software as a form of quality, right, versus think of security as something else. You also mentioned about application infrastructure and cloud. One of the things I've seen is that part of the transformation and a paradigm shift is the fact that application security is not just talking about code, right? Not just application. There's other components tying to the infrastructure. And obviously the cloud also, in my opinion, is also not just a destination, but also a form of practice. So all that, as you say, is part of the transformation in AppSec. What do you think of the drivers that have led to this shift?
Yeah, I mean, I think the drivers are speed, speed and time to delivery. Back in, way back in the day, it would take you months to stand up an application because you would just have so much manual labor. You have to rack and stack and cable and configure and install operating systems and configure databases. I mean, it was months before you could launch anything new. Now, today, we can do it in minutes, sometimes in seconds. You can stand up new things, you can try things, you can experiment, move much faster. It really is such a massive paradigm shift, and to be able to keep pace with that and be able to support that, be able to run alongside these new teams. SRE teams are now, the way of the future. It's this integrated development and operations and support ecosystem where they're not just managing servers or databases or networks, they're deploying the code, they're bringing up the applications, they're supporting the operational testing to ensure that the applications are functioning properly. So from a cybersecurity perspective, being able to come together and couple together with those and deliver very high quality, very high precision cybersecurity at the same time, it's It's a lot of fun and it's challenging at the same time.
Yeah, I like the fact that you mentioned about bringing teams together, right, and obviously talking about speed, right.
Yeah,
This we talked about. It's not just application delivery, right? It's delivery of infrastructure. I remember Cisco. Obviously, I dealt with Cisco for a long time. It's a good example where it is the destination, right? Treating, you mentioned SREs, treating the delivery software delivery team, whether it's application or SRE, the same way as you release software. That's also part of that. So, do
yeah.
you think that is part of the reason of this, call it the platform approach, that the ASPM kind of the thing is that bringing everything together? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think about security as a team sport, and when you can start to bring all of these components together, almost as kind of that player coach, and being able to observe and introspect into what's going on, and enable capabilities to either be guardrails or full sometimes full tilt blockers of things. Having that all in one configurable playbook, one configurable location where everybody understands how this ecosystem works together to be able to support this goal, right? The end state of high quality, resilient, reliable, stable ecosystems. I think it makes the entire journey much easier, and it helps bring everybody together to have the conversations in a central forum, rather than all these point solutions where you have to go talk to different teams and different people, and you have different rules for this or that. uh, Being able to bring this all together into one environment where everybody understands the totality of how the entire program is going to work together and what the results are and where we stand, I think that makes a massive difference.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that all things described to me exactly sounds like platform engineering, which is getting a lot of traction, right? Bringing people together.
Yeah,
Now, I know I
yeah,
think the ASPM, the platform, is exactly matched for that.
yeah.
Now, it's
Yep, I
also
agree.
2024. I always joke that you cannot talk about 2024 without mentioning about AI. So it's crazy, right? How AI has changed, especially Gen AI in the last 12 months. So
Yeah,
AI is changing the game. We all know that, right? I mean, one of the things that we hear is Copilot this, Copilot that, right?
yeah,
So we have citizen developers now that are writing code who are not used to writing code. So code is everywhere,
yeah.
explosion in code. So how
Yep.
do you think the AI has impact on code quality, and what do we need to do different in terms of security?
Yeah, yeah. AI is hugely enabling for security practitioners as well as the development organizations. But if you don't use it right, it can be extremely problematic. Building those guardrails, building the ability for us to look at this code at a much deeper level is going to be really, really important, because we can't throw more humans at the problem. We have to figure out how do we use systems and technology better. So if we're going to produce 50, 60, 80% more code, we're not going to add 50, 60, 80% more people to the organization. We have to have technology that's going to be smarter, that's going to be faster, that's going to enable us to be able to keep pace with what AI is doing. So you almost, in a lot of ways, it's AI on AI. You're looking at how do I use different types of AI technology to help me look at what AI produced. It's pretty wild, and when you start really thinking about using systems to look at what systems are doing, you have to start getting into a scenario where you're going to steer things to humans to be able to double check and provide that feedback, that learning into these LLMs to be able to reduce the amount of human effort that is going to occur. So it's massively enabling in terms of productivity, but we have to still be very, very careful in terms of the quality. Just because you can use something doesn't mean you should use something. And it's going to take time for us to really get comfortable with it and learn and train and understand where humans still have to get involved. And having this centralized in one place, again, really is going to help make this much easier for us to expedite adopting and using.
Thank you. I'll follow on question on AI, because I think as a CISO, right, people always wonder, uh, well, what I'm hearing is that we got to embrace it, right? So obviously, it just means that do you think it is we're not getting away from it. It's happening. It's more around how
Yeah.
do we, is your job, how do we actually figure out what that means and how do we enable the business of AI safely,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. 100%. If you're going to try, if you're going to try and prevent it, uh, there, there's this old adage, if you try and stop someone from doing something, they're just going to go find somebody else that will help them do what they want to do. So you have to get out from behind this antiquated mindset of no. You have to say yes, but here's how. And being able to continue to focus on learning and being able to help put your team in a position where they can learn and they can understand. That's going to be really, really important. So as CISOs, I think it's probably the most important thing for us to do is to help educate our teams, help dedicate parts of your organization to learning about this and using this AI technology in different ways. Because if you don't understand it, how are you going to secure it?
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I would say that's one of the key takeaways. So for the audience, definitely I would think about that. Right. Now, obviously, the one of the other theme about this session is about ASPM. Right. We talk about ASPM Nation. And personally, I've done a lot of work recently, right? Both as a practitioner, as a consultant now here at a vendor. I'm just seeing since Gartner published article last year, the ASPM market just exploded. It's really mean different things to different people. The features of different ASPM vendors are very diverse. So I'm working on that to help educate the market on the differences. Um, Very curious, in your opinion, when we say ASPM, what does it mean to you? How do you define it?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's two sides to that coin. ASPM is obviously technology, but your overarching goal really is about risk reduction and being able to understand the risk to your organization, the risk to your products, the risk to your customers. So being able to leverage technology that's going to help drive risk for you in risk identification, risk remediation, it's really important. Most organizations operate in kind of a hybrid way, right? Operating on premise and in the cloud. So we need technology that supports not just supports being able to run in the cloud, but understands what it means to deploy things to the cloud, understands your infrastructure as code, your Terraform templates, your cloud formation templates. That's a big part in this. That centralized dashboard, bringing all of these capabilities into one tool and giving you one place for visibility and oversight, it's really important. But if you're not thinking about the risk relevance of what's going on, understanding what assets and what elements of your projects are most critical and why, you're going to miss out on things. You can't just treat everything the same. So you have to have something that is going to be able to understand the operations, the elements, the key components, what your data is, what your code is, and help you be able to prioritize where things need to be fixed. You need end-to-end visibility from the developer who writes the code to where that code's actually running in production. Traceability is a huge problem organizationally. And if you're not able to understand who wrote code, who provisioned that code, how it went through the automated deployment process into your cloud environment, and how you trace that back to who has to fix it or who has to get educated. A lot of times you have this continuous loop of the same problems just showing up in your organization. And unless you're able to trace that back to groups of developers or individual developers and understand who you need to go target for education, you're just going to be stuck fixing the same problems over and over again. Uh, Software composition analysis, huge, especially in today's world where we've got to be more transparent around what goes into our products. That's going to be huge. SAS scanning obviously is the I would call the bare minimum entry bar. You've got to be able to find and stop vulnerability. So you have to have a good benchmark against the languages that you can scan to be able to help identify any sort of bugs. We talked about infrastructure as code, secret scanning. Secret scanning is another really important one that will burn you if you're not careful with that. Uh, and also governance over the CI/CD pipeline, making sure that the components that make up your pipeline are configured securely. That's something that we forget about all the time. If your Jenkins system isn't configured properly, and someone can get on that system and can tamper with things going through the pipeline or your dependency system can be tampered with, that's a problem. You got to be able to make sure that those systems and those components are secured, that you're getting logs from them, that you understand that everything is okay, so that you can't wind up with some sort of supply chain scenario unfolding. Um, yeah, I mean, I think those are the big components of it. External detection, looking for lost or leaked source code is important. Automating complex tasks around attestation is really important. I think that's kind of the bulk of it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that I personally think the ASPM, this whole tech, forget about how we call it, right? I think the terminology always reinvents stuff every couple of years, but it's the concept. I like the fact that you to tie all these components, features into the highest goal, which is risk reduction, right? To your point,
Yeah.
I think that
Yep.
ties to what you said earlier, because the evolution of app security is no longer just SaaS and DaaS. I remember the early days. I think with AppSec for many years, it's way more than that, right? Now all these other
Yeah.
components, and I like the fact that
Yep.
you mentioned it's not just the software components or the infrastructure components, the software factory, the delivery mechanism,
Yep.
which is CI/CD pipeline.
Yeah.
So yeah, so okay, yeah, so it's completely agree. It's I think the key takeaway is that because we have so many different components of potential risk attack surface, that's why it's really a complete system that you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important to bring it all together, and it lets you focus on your highest priorities too. Like, as
Yeah.
security practitioners, we always want to fix everything. We always want to make everything perfect, but we all know we can't. We have to figure
Mhm.
out where the highest risk is, what the most important things are. And if we don't have tools and technology that are going to help us prioritize that and be able to speak to our partners, speak to the business, and help them understand, help educate them, we're just not in a good position to be able to drive any sort of effect. If you can't explain why and give people a good solid baseline understanding and motivate them and get them to agree why, it's tough to get traction, so that's really important.
Yeah, I can tell my experience as a practitioner, right? Literally the developers would challenge a DAS finder, for example. Why is this the issue?
Yeah.
And they're very good at justifying, like testifying in court.
Yeah.
I might
Yep.
hire them as my attorney. But I think prioritization is important, right? Because you mentioned about velocity, the
Yeah.
expectation of how fast a code needs to get in production, especially with Copilot,
Yep.
right? It's
Yeah.
more a matter of what's the most important. So I think that's
Yeah.
personally that's a very critical part of ASPM. Now
Yeah.
we talked about obviously what it is and components. Part of it's a journey, right? Okay, great. Hopefully customers see value and bought it, but it got so many different things, right? It depends on customer journey. You may already have a SaaS and DaaS. You might already have SCA or
Yeah.
infrastructure as code, but generally speaking, from a operationalization deployment, like in terms of how do you want if you have that to roll it out, what do you think are the key components of the strategy of adoption?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to focus on, again, risk prioritization. You have to look at where do you have the biggest gaps, uh, where are you creating the most risk for your organization, and you have to start there. Everything has to be a crawl, walk, run journey. If you try and tackle everything, you try and do it all at once, you're going to fail. It's just too much. So you need to step back and you need to say, okay, if I have a SaaS or I have a DaaS and it's already working and it's giving me some efficacy, don't go replace that first. You're already getting some value from that. Focus on what's the next most important thing. Then once you've completed that, then you focus on the next most important thing. It's got to be a journey. This it's a team sport. It's a journey. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon, and you have to figure out what's applicable and what's most relevant for your business from a quality standpoint, and then incrementally check off the boxes.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally it resonates with me, right? I remember when I advised customers about AppSec capabilities in general, there's literally debates. If you remember the last couple of years, with the explosion of a supply chain, third-party codes, and people say you should do SCA first instead of
Yeah,
SAST. But there's
yeah,
also argument that while most of the SCA libraries are very noisy, then the most risky are still custom code. So
yeah,
I like the fact to say it doesn't matter, right? Like know what you have, has visibility, and what is
yeah,
the next thing.
yeah,
So, and
yeah.
ASPM
Exactly.
obviously give you that visibility. Yep.
Yeah, yep, yeah. You got to
That's a good
understand the
takeaway for the
risk.
audience.
Yeah.
Cool. You mentioned how do we, ultimately it's risk reduction, right? So risk reduction is the most important. Once you have visibility, figure out what you need to tackle the most. ASPM you mentioned earlier, right? One of the benefit is that it brings people together. So, and ultimately driving better remediation outcome, because we don't have enough time to identify issues, right?
Yeah.
Now the issue identified, prioritized, we got to quickly enable the right team, trace it to the right origin to help remediate. So, how do you address better remediation outcomes with a tool like ASPM versus like point solution?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think now you have central visibility, central tracking. Now you have the ability to understand that in this part of the organization, it's more about educating the developers versus this part of the organization, it's more about focused on, replacing secrets, for example. It gives you that ability to have multiple levers and see them in one console instead of having to run to six different places and try to figure out who do I have to go get and what do I have to figure out. This is it's almost like flying, if you're flying an airplane and if the landing gear is in the back, the button for that you have to run to the back to push that button, and then if you're going to go put the flaps down, you got to go up into the cockpit to push that button. Running back and forth and running around just waste time. Being able to have all of this central in one place where you can have an understanding across your entire quality spectrum from a cybersecurity standpoint, it allows you to make better decisions faster, and it allows you to educate people and build up that trust and build up the community and the collaboration around where you need to go and why you need to go there.
Yeah, so speaking of trust, one of the things I've my own experience with me assist many clients is right in the world's app security, DevSecOps. One of the things is getting developer buy-in, trust. How do you think the
Yeah.
ASP enabled that in terms of developer experience?
If you do it right, the developers honestly should just come along for the journey with you. If you go talk to a developer about a tool, then it becomes about the tool. But if you go talk to the developer about the journey and what the outcome is, and you engineer the solution together, then it's about the outcome. That's what's really important. I think if you just show up with a solution and you give people solutions, people step back. They don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to be told how to do it. They want to be part of figuring out how they're going to do this. So it's important to come with the journey, explain what the outcome is, explain where you want to go, where you want to get to, and then talk about the solutions and the approaches and the mechanisms to get there. And ASPM becomes part of that journey and helps enable you to get there. But if you just show up and you tell developers ASPM is a solution, that's not going to get you where you need to go. You need to talk about trust and quality and outcomes. And then it just becomes a natural conversation for people to be able to understand that, oh, yeah, doing this as a platform really makes a lot more sense. It helps us get to where we need to be.
Thank you. Oh, that's really great. I personally want to foot stomp the audience, right? Because I want to debunk, based on your response, want to debunk another industry myth of there's many saying that developers don't care about security. Obviously, your experience and my experience, especially your
Yeah,
track record,
they
that no,
do.
it's not true.
Yep.
If you make the effort you
Yeah.
talked about, it can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Every developer really does care because it's a quality thing at the end of the day. No developer wants to roll out code that's not good or is subpar. They want to roll out high quality things that people will trust, will love, will rely on. And they understand that security is a part of that. But if you show up and you tell a developer to do how to do their job, or you try to force their developer to do something different without them really understanding what the reason is or the outcome, nobody wants that. I don't want that. I don't want people showing up telling me how to do my job. It's about outcomes, and it's about where we need to go, where we need to get to together, and why, and how this makes everybody better, everything better. Because at the end of the day, this is a team sport.
Thank you. Yeah, those are not good nuggets for the audience. I think overall, hopefully today, with our discussion, there's a lot of nuggets, advice to the audience of on how to start their ASPM journey. Right, all these little components matters. Any final words as we're closing this? Anything else that we haven't mentioned? Any advice we'll give to the leaders uh, as they embark of their ASPM journey? Anything else?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the big thing is investing. Investing in your team, building trust with your team, helping them see where you want to get to, and giving them the opportunity to be able to help pave the golden paths. Right? Talk about outcomes. Talk about trust. Give them the resources. Give them the training. Give them the education, and really enable them to help with the outcomes, help with the solutions, and that will make things so much more successful. As a CISO, if you show up and you just tell your team what to do, again, it's just like telling the developers, right? Talk about outcomes, focus on where you want to get to, and then work with the teams to help chart that path and figure out how to get there and support them, remove roadblocks for them.
Thank you. And my takeaway is that you have may have the best tool, best ASPM out there. You got to pair it with the best leadership.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So thank you, Vijay. It's a great session. I just so enjoyed discussing with you. We'll wrap up here. Really appreciate your time. I wish time was longer. But so thank you, Vijay, again for your time today. It's so great to hear your insights. Next
Thank you
up,
so
handing
much.
back to you, Shauna. Thank you. And Shauna, back to you. And who will be introducing the next session?